Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video we're going to be going over Low Tide City 2023. It was a beach here that happened this weekend and it was one of the best events I've seen in a really long time. There are so many banger sets and just a really good appetizer before Battle of BC that's happening this next weekend. In 13th place you had Pelka, Ray, SkyJ, and Nico. 9th place you had Gamerdog, Keshi, Eboy, or Syrup, Orex, and Shattuck. In 7th place you had Johnny and Teaser. 5th place you had Apollo, Kage, and Beastly. Fourth place, you had Shu. Third place, Meister. Second place, Capitancito. And winning the entire thing was Mutes. So let's actually talk about the players that underperformed, because there is a couple of them. There was 4 people that were projected to make top 8 that didn't. The first one is Cosmos. That's going to be because he DQ'd, so he's safe. But the next one is going to be Shattuck, who fell to Apollo Cog in the winner's side of bracket. Not a big deal at all. And Shu in the loser's side of bracket. Also not a big deal because that is a really, really tough matchup, and Shu played it extremely well. So for Shattuck, it's 9th place. It's a little bit of underperformance, but honestly, it's not the end of the world. Again, 9th place at a regional like this. It isn't too bad of a placement. The other ones are going to be Kobe and SkyJ, who both just fell in Meister's loser run, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But you have SkyJ falling off pretty early on as he was getting upset by Capitancito, which is just a terrible match for Incineroar. And Capitancito played it correctly, which really refreshing when people just aren't afraid of Incineroar. And Capitancito had no fear. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he was able to get the dub because of it. And then SkyJ fell into the loser's bracket, had to fight Tavares, went game 5 with them because Tavares is crazy, but they were able to get the win. And then they fell to Meister. And Kobe, it's kind of just the same thing. He lost fairly early on the winner's side of bracket to Teaser, and then just lost to Meister. So just a little bit unlucky for those players. But if I'm SkyJ and Kobe, especially SkyJ, just because the tear that he's been on as of late at majors, I wouldn't worry too much about this. Getting your worst event out of the way before Battle of BC is a really good thing, because this happened at Battle of BC, that could ruin your event. You get 65th at that tournament, your season could be over. So it's nice to get your low placement out of the way. Let's say, okay, I did Battle at Low Tide City, shake it off. Next weekend is the one that matters. And if people use that mentality and go into Battle of BC with a refreshed mindset, I think they're going to do absolutely fine. So if you're a SkyJ fan, Kobe fan, Shattuck fan, I wouldn't worry too much about this placement. Also, I gotta give a shout out to Orex because he had another ridiculous losers run in this bracket. After losing to Meister, ironically, he was able to beat Magic Trumpet Man, Sergio, and that is just to get into day 2. And once he was in day 2, he just turned up, because in a row he was able to beat Dark Angel, Alternus, Murph, and Ray before losing to Teaser. Really impressive by then, showing that amount of stamina when this is fairly new performances from Orex. Like, he's been having decent performances at the Texan locals, but this is probably his best ever performance at a regional of this caliber, so he should be super, super happy with that one. Also, kind of to the same extent, Gamerdog, I think this is the first time I've seen them make it this deep. They were able to get wins over both Pelka and Skid, so shouts to both those players. Hope to see them back at the top again, because they just looked impressive here. Now in 7th place, you're going to have both Teaser and Johnny, starting off with Teaser, who beat Kobe in the winner's side of bracket, which is a huge win, especially considering that Kobe just won Cirque to CFL. Then he lost to Capitancito, but was able to end the loser's run of Orex to make top 8. And Samus has just been doing really well this year. Teaser's getting top 8 here. You have Icy Mist winning regionals, Yara being Yara. Even though Siski isn't finding as much success at the major level, he's doing very well at his regional. So shout out to Samus players that are farming, but shout outs to Johnny, because he plays like 40 characters. And those are my favorite types of players, the people that are just cycling through characters, because one, it's just entertaining to watch, but two, they're almost never going into a losing matchup, which is just smart. If you can invest your time just to becoming good at Smash in general and not your character, and your brain lets you play like that, and you can play 30 characters, then you absolutely should. And we saw a lot of success for that for Johnny, because even though he lost to Apollo Kage 3-2 in the losers bracket, he was able to beat DJ Don, Nico, and Gamerdog in a row before losing to Meister with that set that we won't talk about again. The Ike was cooking, the Crom was kind of cooking, the Lucina was not cooking, but at the end of the day, he got top 8, and that's all that really matters. First of all, I want to talk about arguably the run of the tournament, and that is going to be Beastly, who just played out of his mind. He very early on got an upset over Meister in Diddy Kong Game & Watch, and then was able to beat Shu 3-0 and Gamerdog 3-0. Meister set was 3-1, by the way. And then the winner side of top 8, he lost to Mutes, and then loser side, he lost to Shu, but still really impressive showing from it. And I also liked how many characters he used, because he used Diddy Kong, Ness, and maybe Rob. I know he co-mains Rob, or at least I think he co-mains Rob, but I didn't see the tournament. If it did come out, though, I wouldn't be surprised. But the main focus, at least for me, was the Diddy Kong, because it just looked insane. He is such a promising player. And also something that's really interesting to me is just how many Diddy Kongs are doing really well right now in the meta, because I think Diddy Kong is a great character. I think he's a great character in this meta, but Diddy Kong is extremely hard, and yet there is so many Diddy Kong players having a ton of success in Japan and NA and essentially every region. So huge shouts to Beastly. Good Diddy Kong gameplay is always clean. Also, again, I really like people that are switching between. In 5th place, you also had Apollo Kage, who was able to get wins on Johnny and Shattuck, and then in the top 8, he lost to Capitancito and Meister, which honestly, both of those look like pretty tough matchups. I know for a fact that Game & Watch is, and then for me, Gunner, I don't know if it's just unfamiliarity with the matchup, but he could not get in. Capitancito kept him out so well. He wasn't getting checked by any grenades. He just played out of his mind. So shout outs to Capitancito for that, because beating Apollo Kage, especially in the fashion that he did, like 3-0, is really, really difficult to do. And then Meister 3-1 over Apollo Kage. Not a bad performance from Apollo Kage, all things considered, even though he does technically underperform his second place seed. He still got the top 8. He still looked clean, still got some good wins along the way. And going into Battle of BC, I wouldn't have any wavering confidence in him, because he is just constantly learning. Even right after the set he lost to, Capitancito was immediately asking for questions. Like, a player that has that kind of willpower just to improve is so scary. And Apollo Kage, that's all he wants to do is improve, and it's very clearly showing that he is. Next up, we're going to be talking about Shu, who also arguably had one of the runs of the tournament, even after they were upset by Beastly fairly early on. They went on a crazy loser run, beating Zai, Pelka, and Shattuck. Shattuck obviously being the biggest one there to make top 8. So Shattuck not making top 8 of this regional, that's a pretty big deal. And then once they were in the top 8, they were able to beat Teaser, Beastly, and then gave up a pretty good showing versus Meister. And all I got to say is, I told you guys, Shu is a ridiculous player. Also, something that I just picked up from their gameplay, I love the way that they were using flip kicks. I don't know, it was just unreal. Every single time there's a situation they could use flip kick, they did it. On the ground to disengage, after side beat, they'd flip kick every single time for like a 50-50 going for a berry. It was just really smart. I really liked the way that they were playing, and I want to see more Shu, because I just want to see more Zero Suit in general. I think this character is really interesting to watch, and the good Zero Suit players are so fun to watch because they just elegantly move around in the air, and Shu is definitely of that class. Again, played out of their mind this tournament, and they definitely could have beat Meister in the losers bracket, by the way. That's a good matchup for Zero Suit, and they were definitely giving a good show at it, so huge shout out to Shu, just very impressed by that. Now let's talk about this losers run from Meister, because it is pretty ridiculous. He starts off day 2 in the losers side of bracket. He loses to Beastly on day 1, and then just goes crazy. He beats Spritzy, Toasty, who had just beaten Guy, by the way, Kobe, SkyJ, and Keshi Ebo in a really close game 5 set. Then when he was in the top 8, he beats Johnny, who played Ike, Crom, and Lucina. And Ike, I think he got reverse 3-stocked. Crom, I think, got 2-stocked. And Corin, or rather Lucina, we're not going to talk about that game, but just know that Meister did win it. And then he went on to 3-1 Apollo Kage, 3-1 Shu, and then got 3-2'd by Capitancito. But really good losers run from Meister. Also, I love how Johnny just counterpicked him, even if it wasn't super, super serious. I like, hey, I've got deep pockets, I've got sword characters. These are should be winning matches first game watch. You might as well try it, and it didn't end up working, but I respect the effort there. And then also, again, Meister's bracket really interesting, because he would go from a super winning matchup to a super losing matchup and just go back and forth, and most of the time he was winning them, even though Capitancito stopped him, which I think would be a winning matchup for Game Watch. That's going to be one that you're not as familiar with. So overall, good loser run from Meister. Getting 3rd place at a regional like this is pretty impressive. Then in terms of the drama, we're not going to really talk about it, because I don't really care to talk about drama on this channel. If you want to do some research, it's all on Twitter for yourself. So that's all the input I'm going to add to that. Next up, we got to talk about Capitancito, and all I can say is, I told you guys again, because he looked unreal this tournament. He was significantly underseeded. I think everyone knew he was underseeded. I think he did. I think his opponents did. I think the TOs did, and he kind of proved it here by getting 2nd place. He 3-0'd SkyJ in one of the best ways I've ever seen someone deal with Incineroar. Like, there are very few times where SkyJ, it makes it look like he's playing a losing matchup. I think the only other example I can think of recently is versus Karama at Summit, who just bullied him. Capitancito would not let SkyJ in. Just played it perfectly, and he was able to get a 3-0. Then he 3-1 Teaser with essentially a diet version of Samus. Again, played out of his mind. 3-0'd Apollo Kage. Again, another top 20 player in the world. Like SkyJ, somewhere around top 20. Apollo Kage, somewhere around top 20. He 3-0'd both of those players. Got 2 massive wins this event. Then he did lose to Mutis, but then he 3-2'd Meister. Again, that's like a top 30 player in the world. That's a really big win. And then he did lose to Mutis in the grand finals. But still, Capitancito, this is one of the best performances we've ever seen from a Mii Gunner. Maybe even the best performance we've ever seen from a Mii Gunner. And if it's not, the other one still probably goes to Capitancito, because he is definitely the best rep of this character. He's so good in his class. The way he uses forward on this character, just schmove around, like, it is actually ridiculous how quick he is in the air. His ledge trapping is insane, and just huge props to him, because this is obviously the best Mii Gunner gameplay we've ever seen. Now let's actually talk about the winner of the tournament. That is going to be, of course, Mutis. And all I can say is, he's back, baby. You know, had a rough week in Japan. Didn't have any really good tournaments there. A lot of underperformances. But bounces back super hard here. Beats Murph and Keshi Eboy to make top 8. Then beats Beastly, Capitancito, and Capitancito in the reset. Only dropping a game to him in winners finals once he made top 8. So Mutis just looked amazing this tournament. And all I got to say is, watching good Mutis is like watching art. He is one of the most fun players in the game to watch. So methodical. The amount of micro movements that he's doing are just unreal, and his combo game, it's just crazy. I mean, it kind of has to be with Peach, but the movement stuff, that's where Mutis really makes his money, and just really impressed by this tournament. Really hope he can carry that momentum going into Battle of BC, because if he plays like he was there, I could honestly see him getting top 8 of that tournament, and I know that seems like a low bar, but for the amount of people that are at Battle of BC, getting top 8 would be pretty impressive. And I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. This tournament was an absolute banger. Shouts to everyone that did well here. And if you didn't do well here, don't worry about it. This one doesn't even matter anyway because Battle of BC is right around the corner. And that is where it counts big time. So I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If there was a player that I forgot to mention, please let me know down below. I'll be sure to tell you how I think their run is. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Sport's been absolutely unreal lately. Thank you guys for everything. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.